In this video, you learn how to play and write modal chord progressions on guitar. Chord progressions, the chords themselves, are what determine the mode that you're in, not the notes that you're playing. People get this wrong all the time. Hi, this is Simon Candy from Acoustic Guitar Lessons Online.net, and in this lesson, we're going to look at modal chord progressions. We're going to look at some modal chord progressions coming from C major, the modes of C major. Okay, we'll look at how the chord progressions work and how to choose the best chords when writing modal chord progressions. You're going to learn the importance of the tonic chord, what we call cadential chords, and characteristic chords. We'll break that down. I'll show you exactly what they mean. But understanding those terms and what they are leads you to the better choices when writing modal chord progressions. Okay, so we'll break down some chord progressions and get right into the thick of it. The progressions is where you really want to start with modes. If you are new to modes, I have other videos on the channel. I'll link to one in the top right corner here that gets you sort of in the world of modes. You don't have to watch that video to understand this one today, but certainly will be worth watching to sort of broaden your understanding of modes. But a lot of people start with the notes when it comes to modes, scales and so forth. Of course, that's part of it, but I think a big piece is missing when you don't understand the harmony of scales, and modes are no exception to that. So let's get into some very cool sounding modal chord progressions. Okay, so let me just break it down in real basic terms here and just keep it really simple, okay? And then we'll get into a little bit more of the details. So to understand modal progressions, you really want to understand, major scale harmony, basically. So in the key, let's say of C major, we have a C chord is the 1 chord, D minor is the 2, E minor is the 3, F is the 4, G is the 5, A minor is the 6th chord, B diminished is the 7, and we're back to the 1 again. They're the chords in the key of C major, or if we're talking modally, C Ionian. And if I was going to write a chord progression in C major, it's not a rule, but I would probably most likely start on the C chord. I certainly want the C chord to be the center of the key, if you like, the tonic or the root chord. If it's not, then we're not really in the key of C, as we'll see when we get into the modes, okay? But if I was writing a chord progression in the key of C, I'd start on C, maybe I'll go to G, and I might go to the 6th chord, and the 4th chord, world's most common chord progression, and you can hear that C, G, A minor, D minor, C, F, right? C feels home base, right? So we're in the key of C here. In the key of C, we have modes. So as I said, I linked to a video on modes in the top right corner here. So check that out for more detail. I don't want to get off topic here or go too broad here. However, just in layman's terms, if I make one of the other chords in this key of C, right, we won't be in the key of C when we do this, but if I make one of the other chords in the key, the tonic, right, then I'd actually be in one of the modes. So for example, if I want to be in D Dorian, which is the second mode of C major, the 2 chord is D minor. It's a minor mode. I'd want to start on that D minor chord, ideally, okay? And I'd want to feature it, and I want to set it up so your ear now hears the D minor as the 1, okay? Let's see if we can do that. We have the D minor, so we start on it, and then I might go to F, I might go to G, and back to D minor. So just a little 3-chord cycle to the 5 and to the D minor. See, and the C wants to now resolve to D minor. It wasn't like that before. I set that up so your ear could hear D minor as the 1 chord, and in doing so, I'm actually playing a chord progression in the key of D Dorian. Okay, that's the basic concept. Make any one of the chords in the key of C can become a 1 chord, can become the center, the root, the tonic. And when it does, it becomes the mode that is based off that degree. Okay, so a little more detail here, all right? Let's get into the nitty-gritty of modal chord progressions. So let's say we're going to play a modal chord progression in D Dorian. Okay, we want to write a chord progression in D Dorian. So first off, what are the chords in D Dorian? Well, They're coming from C major, right? It's a mode of C major. So it's got the same chords as C major. However, the 1 chord is D minor. It's a big difference, not C, D minor. Then the 2 chord would be E minor. The 3 would be F major. The 4 would be G major. The 5 would be A minor. The 6 would be the diminished. The 7 would be the C. And the 1, back to the 1 there, on the D minor. So D minor is the 1, which means every other chord sort of moved along one, or actually back 1, I should say. Okay, this makes all the difference in the world. Okay, so they're the chords we've got to choose from. Now, before I mentioned tonic, cadential, and characteristic chords. So the tonic chord here is obviously D minor. So we want things, you know, if you're going to write something in D Dorian and you're not going to have a D minor chord at all, well, you're in trouble. And if you don't start on that D minor, then there's every likelihood that you're going to sort of lead your ear to hear something else as the center and you'd be in another mode, whether it's just C Ionian or the minor or whatever. Okay, so the 1 chord, the root is D minor. Now, cadential chords is when you play chords only a scale degree away from the root chord. So in D Dorian, the 1 chord, the root, is D minor. So 1 scale tone away would be E minor. Okay, it's going up 1, or down 1 to the 7 before the 1. Okay, these chords work well. Why? Because they're not far from the tonic, the root chord being D minor, and they lead your ear back to the root. As you can hear, it's the 7. Okay. So again, D minor is the 1 chord. One side of D minor, you've got the 2 chord, E minor. So that's a cadential chord, back to the D minor. Then before 1, well, you're going back down the scale, it's 7, okay, which happens to be the C major chord. Okay, and hear how there's your 1 right there, cadential chords. They work well, they're good options when you're playing modes, okay? And modal progressions tend to be a little more sparse, not as many chord changes perhaps, or longer time spent on chords, and your ear does not naturally hear the root chord as easily as it will in the major key. So do be aware of that, okay? It takes some training and it's not as sort of obvious to your ear. Your ear doesn't get pulled to the 1 chord as much as it does when you're playing in, you know, the typical major key where there's functional harmony going on. The other type of chord that will work really well in modes is what we call a characteristic chord. So what is that? Well, if we've got a minor mode like D Dorian, let's compare it back to the D natural minor scale, just the notes, okay? So in D Dorian, we have D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, okay? They're the notes in D Dorian. D minor, just the D natural minor scale, we have D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D. So what's the point of difference between the 2 scales, the 2 keys? The B note in Dorian, where it's a B flat in the natural minor scale. Okay, so the point is that that is the difference between the 2. So if you were to play a chord progression that contained a B note in it, you know, chords that contain the B note, the characteristic note when in D Dorian, you'd be really expressing the Dorian sound, because that's the point of difference. The other notes are important and other chords can be used that don't have that characteristic note. But if we look at D Dorian, characteristic note B is in the E minor chord. There's a B note in there. G has a B note in it, and of course the half diminished chord. Okay, so the point is, if it's got that characteristic note in it, the characteristic note being the point of difference between the minor mode and the natural minor key, then it's going to express that mode quite well too. Okay, so an example of a chord progression in D Dorian, a very common one, is D minor to the 4, G. Minor to the 4, G, and you can hear that. So I just played the C chord there, but the C doesn't feel resolved anymore. It's the D minor, because we are in D Dorian, and we've just been here in D Dorian for the last couple of minutes. So our ears sort of settle into that key a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to do this with some other modal keys so we can reinforce the concept of the tonic, root chord, cadential, and characteristic chords. Okay, so let's have a look at the mode known as the Phrygian mode. And we're looking at modes in the key of C here. So E Phrygian is the third mode of C major. In the key of E Phrygian, we have an E minor chord. That's the 1. The 2 chord is F. 3 chord is G major. 4 chord is A minor. 5 is the B diminished. 6 is the C. And then the 7 is the D minor, and then back to E minor. Okay, they're the chords, so of course they are chords in C major too, because it's a mode of C major, it contains the same chords as it did in D Dorian. However, now our ear needs to perceive E minor as the 1 chord. And because we've just, again, we are moving between the modes of, of the 1 major key here quite quickly. So if your ear's not settling in these modes, that's understandable. But when you spend some time yourself playing chord progressions, experimenting as you should, and applying these concepts in any particular 1 mode, spend time in that mode. Don't sort of flip through them as quickly as we are here, okay? But let's just reinforce the concept of these types of chords. So we've got the root chord, of course, is E minor. So it's all about that E minor chord. We want to set it up to be the home base. And if we look at cadential chords for Phrygian, E minor, what's the next chord a scale tone up? It's F. There's that E Phrygian sound. If you've played any E Phrygian before, or Phrygian, you know that 1 to flat 2 is very common. And that's a cadential chord. And then the other side of E minor, the 7 chord, is D minor. Okay, so you got the 1 chord, go 1 up, you get the 2, F major. You got the 1 chord, go 1 down, you got D minor. The other side of 1 being the 7 chord, and then back to the 1. So those chords pull you nicely back to that 1 chord. And as I do this, your ear starts to hear that E minor. But even my ear's not quite hearing it yet because we are moving through these modes. So I'll just make that point, just so you're not thinking, am I missing something, as in you thinking to yourself. No, you're not. It's just that we're moving through these reasonably quickly. Do spend time in 1 mode. Let your ear, sort of immerse yourself in that mode. Just marinate in it and start to really learn the sound of it. Okay, and the characteristic chords in E Phrygian. So what do we need to do? Phrygian is a minor mode, so let's compare the notes in the key of E Phrygian to the natural E minor scale, E natural minor. So if we do, again, there's 1 point of difference. See here how we've got E Phrygian, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and the E natural minor is E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, what's the point of difference? Phrygian has the flat 2, the F note. So any chord with an F in it, an F note in it, in Phrygian is going to be a good chord to use. It's really going to express the sound of Phrygian because it's got the point of difference in there, okay, from the natural minor. So those chords for E Phrygian would be F. That's a characteristic chord, simply because it's got an F note in it. D minor, also characteristic, and then the B half diminished. So notice 2 of those characteristic chords are also cadential chords. So cadential chords can be characteristic chords too. It just depends how it works out. But in this case, the D minor and the F, whilst they're cadential chords, they're also characteristic chords containing the point of difference being the F note. And we've got the diminished. So, maybe a Phrygian progression could be an E minor, the 1 chord, flat 2 and the 7 chord, just call it a 2 chord really. So E minor, the 1, a real Phrygian sound to that 2, and the 7, and okay, now we've, maybe with you too, now we've sort of just been in Phrygian for a minute or 2. My ear is certainly starting to become more accustomed to the Phrygian sound, and hearing that E minor as the 1 sort of moved on from D Dorian. Even though we are using the same chords, they're playing a different role depending on what mode you're in. That's the point, okay, that I want you to hear here today. Okay, so that's an example of a chord progression and chords in the key of E Phrygian. Okay, so moving along here, let's rip out a couple more modes here, modal progressions. So let's have a look at F Lydian, the Lydian mode in the key of C, or coming from the key of C, that's the 4th mode, and in C that's F. So F Lydian would have the chords F major, G major. A minor is the 3 chord. B half diminished is the 4 chord. C is the 5. D minor is the 6. E minor is the 7. Back to the 1 chord, F. So now our ear wants to hear F as the tonal center, the root chord. Okay. Now the cadential chords, either side, 1 step up, 1 step back around that root in F Lydian. You've got F, of course. The G is 1 step up. Then you've got the F, and 1 step down to the 7 chord is E minor, and then back to the 1 chord, F. Okay, so just playing around. I think a good step would be just to identify the cadential chords here, and just come in and out of the root, the tonic, being F in this case for F Lydian, and just set your ear up to hear that. Yeah, as we do this. That F Lydian sound, and going to that major 2 chord is a very common Lydian progression. Okay, and we'll know why in a moment. Okay, but they're the cadential chords. Now, F Lydian is a major mode. Okay, not a minor mode like Dorian and Phrygian. So if we compare it to the F major scale, the key of F major, F Lydian to F major, we want to know what's the point of difference here. So let's have a look. As you can see there, the B flat. Okay, Lydian has a sharp 4, if you like, if you compare it back to the parallel major key here. So in F Lydian we have F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. In F major we have F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. So this really, as it does with all the comparisons we've done with the other modes, really changes the chord makeup in the key. It's not one note's not going to change one chord. Any single note within a key, like a mode key, a modal key, mode, or major or minor, appears in 3 of the 7 chords of the key. So if we change one note, it changes 3 chords, which drastically changes the sort of soundscape, if you like, of that key. Now the characteristic note here is B, so any note with a B in it is going to sound great. Okay, sorry, any note with a B in it. Any chord with a B in it is going to be a good selection, a good choice when in F Lydian. Okay, so what are those characteristic chords? Well, it would be G, that's because it's got a B in it. It would also be the E minor, because E minor has a B in it, and it would be, of course, the B half diminished in this case as well. That also happens to be cadential chords, doesn't it? And that's why the 1 to the 2 works really well, and it's a very common progression of vamp in F Lydian to the 2, to the F Lydian, or F, E minor. Okay, they would be the cadential chords, G and E minor, but they would also be characteristic chords because G has a B in it, E minor has a B in it. B is the point of difference between the F Lydian, being a major mode, and just the regular F major key. Okay, and maybe a typical progression, F Lydian, well, is this 1 chord, sorry, to the 2 chord. That's a very common Lydian progression. Okay, I won't keep playing it for the sake of time here, but you get the idea. Another thing that you can do, comes to mind here, is the characteristic note can be added to different chords within the key, just to express the sound a little more. So for example, in that chord progression, G has the characteristic note in it, B. F doesn't. Okay, but we could put it in there. So if I play an F, and I just take my first finger off here, there's that B note added to the F chord. So now it's still an F major chord, but it's like an F major, what we call that, probably F major at 11. Okay, is what I think we would call that. Or we could call it F, it depends on the context, okay, but we'll call it F major at 11 because we're in F Lydian here. And that's really nice with the G. We can just add the characteristic note if it's not already in the chord, okay? That can sound really cool and is a cool concept that you can use in any of the modal keys. As long as you know what the characteristic note is, you can add it to chords in the key that don't already have that note in it, and that would be 4 of the 7 chords, and it will just extend the sound of the chord in some way. So cool things to play around with. Okay, so let's quickly look at one more example here. Let's have a look at the 5th mode of C major, which is G Mixolydian. So the chords in G Mixolydian are G, it's the 1, A minus 2, B half diminished is 3, C is 4, D minor is 5, E minor is 6, and then we have, I'm going blank here, F is 7, and back to G is 1. Okay, so, again, same chords, but now G is the 1, which means A minor is 2, and, it affects every other chord, right? Let's have a look at what the cadential chords are in G Mixolydian. Well, G is the root chord, so that's very important. We want to establish the key, and it's all about making the G feel like home base here. And on one side of G, we have A minor, the 2 chord, coming back to G, and then we have the 7 on the other side of 1. Just a scale tone away is a cadential chord to the root. Okay, so A minor back to the G, to the F, back to the G. Okay, now we were just hearing F Lydian, so you might be hearing F sort of more as the 1 there. But again, as I say, we're not typically going to be moving through modes so quickly, particularly modes of the same, coming from the same major key. Okay, so that's fine. But that's the cadential chords, A minor and F, back to the root chord G. Okay, now what's the characteristic note in G major, or G Mixolydian, sorry? Well, Mixolydian is a major mode, so we need to compare it to the parallel major key. Okay, minor modes compared to the parallel minor key, major modes compared to the parallel major key to find the characteristic note. And in this case, if we compare G Mixolydian to G major, as you can see there, it's the F. Okay, in G major we have the F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. In G Mixolydian, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, we have the F, flat 7. So any chord with an F in it is going to be a good chord to use in a G Mixolydian chord progression. So what are those chords? F, of course, has an F in it. D minor, the 5 chord, has an F in it. And of course, B, half diminished, has the F in it. Okay, so they would be good chord choices simply because you've got the characteristic note in those chords. Notice it's always 3 chords in the key that are affected. So while there's only 1 note difference, you might think, it's not that big a difference. Well, it does affect 3 of the 7 chords, almost half of the chords in the key. So that is quite a big difference. Okay, so a chord progression in G Mixolydian might be a G, of course. Starting on the 1 is a good idea. We'll go down to the F. We'll go to a C. And we'll go back to the 1. Real typical sort of rock progression here. G, B Mixolydian, the rock mode. 7 to the C, and back to the 1. Okay, and notice as we get a little deeper in each mode here, or as we spend more time in Mixolydian, even though it's only a couple of minutes here, you can hear that now, or at least I can hear that G more established as the 1. Okay, so modal chord progressions. This is, I wish, if I had my time again, I really wish I'd been taught modes from the ground up, meaning from chord progressions first, then into the modal scales. Basically, that doesn't happen, not in my experience. And it's often, as I see it, taught online and so forth, it's all about notes and scales and the Mixolydian mode, and this is where we play it, it's the 5th mode of blah, blah, blah. And that's all good and true. But you're kind of missing the foundation to modes, which is chord progressions, the harmony. So understand that, and you'll really have a much better background or foundation to work from to understand modes from a scale point of view, notes, so forth. Which again, you can access that video linked in the top right corner. So that's modal progressions. Take these ideas, learn them, play around with them, have fun with them, and you'll get a lot more immersed and gain a better understanding of modes. If you like this video, then you'll love this free ebook I've created for you in my Jazz Concepts for Acoustic Guitar series, simply titled Block Chords. In this ebook, you learn the 3 main block chord types for your guitar playing and how to create great music with them. I also show you how to best visualize these shapes on your guitar so you never forget them. It's as easy as changing 1 single note in each block chord shape. You also learn a system for easily relating the block chord shapes to each other all over the fretboard so you can play any chord you like in any position with ease. So click the link below in the description of this video and download your free copy of the ebook audio Jazz Concepts for Acoustic Guitar Block Chords. Let me know in the comments what your favorite modal chord progression is, or perhaps your favorite mode, or even let us know some songs you identify as being in particular modes and which mode you like to hear the most. I love to read all your comments. Also suggest any topics you'd like seen in future videos. I'd be more than happy to check the suggestions out and more than likely make a video on it if it's something that I can see is going to be of value to you as a guitar player and certainly as an acoustic guitarist. If you like this video, then hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed to the channel already, then certainly you can do so. I'd love to have you on board. And of course, don't forget to hit the all-important notification bell button so YouTube can tell you when I've released a new video. This is Simon Candy from acousticguitarlessonsonline.net. As always, I very much appreciate your time. I hope you've enjoyed this video and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.